second piece of information I wanted to go over is loading and unloading positions. These stretchers go in loading position when we load it and when we unload it. And that position is with the head of the bed up at an angle. You can see from this position how it's not flat, but it's at an angle, that stretcher. Once we take it off, it's in an elevated position. Okay, I'm trying to secure it. This stretcher is really high. It's in an elevated position, and that is loading and unloading position only. Once we get the patient off that power load, we need to level it out, okay? And that, number one, is more comfortable for the patient. Number two, lowers our center of gravity so that if we do topple, it's less likely to happen, or if we start to tip or whatever, because our center of gravity. I don't know if you've ever been on this particular gurney in loading position. If you haven't, I suggest you do. It feels like you're 7 feet in the air. And although we laugh at patients when we, when we see them like grab because they're so high once we start moving and stuff, it is a scary position. I have been on that stretcher in loading position and taken throughout the hospital in loading position, and it feels like 6 feet in the air, and my center of gravity was too high. If they would have even hit just a little tiny pebble, I could have toppled over. So I appreciate that feeling. Loading and unloading is only for loading. Position is for only loading and unloading. Now everybody says, well, it's not high enough. If you're tall, it's not high enough. And I beg to differ. There is a lot of positions on this stretcher. If you're tall, you should be at the head and not the feet, number one. And this thing right here, you can hold on to. It's high, especially when they're sitting up. So again, this is for our liability. If we hit a little pebble, if we're going sideways, which we should never do, in the old days, we did a lot of cot, gurney, preventative maintenance and all that sort of stuff ourselves. With these, we don't do so much, but the stuff still applies. You don't go sideways with these stretchers. You don't move sideways. You should be moving forwards and backwards. And angling, if you need to move sideways, you need to angle it and go forward. A tiny little pebble down there can topple this whole thing over because the center of gravity. It's just kind of a common sense thing, but I see people going sideways a lot, and that isn't good. If you need to go sideways, then you need to have 4 people, 1 at the head, 1 at the foot, and 2 at the sides, so that it's safer. Okay, so loading and unloading is only for loading and unloading off of that power stretcher thing, load thing, okay? Level your patients out, please. Again, liability. Just level your patients out when you're moving into the hospital or to the ambulance from their house.